listening to the FibroTV Podcast with Jen Reynolds.
FibroTV, making positive connections in the chronic illness community.
My body hurts.
The information on this podcast does not constitute medical advice and is for information and educational purposes only. We cannot answer patient-specific questions nor give any professional medical advice through email or via the website. Please consult your physician for specific treatment recommendations.
Another migraine, my headache hurts. I've tried aspirin, Advil, extra strength, Tylenol and such. Nothing seems to kill the pain.
Hello everyone, this is Jen Reynolds, creator and founder of FibroTV.com. Today you're listening to FibroTV episode number 17. And in today's podcast, we are going to be discussing relationships with others after being diagnosed with a chronic illness. We're also going to talk a little bit about the guests we're going to have next week on our show. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the podcast.
If it's not my shoulder or my elbow, it's my back.
So I went ahead and asked everybody over at FibroTV on Facebook what I should talk about on today's episode. As some of you know, I have not been around for a while doing podcasts. I actually have been doing a radio show in the DC area and have been quite busy. But I asked people what they would like me to talk about, and a lot of people wanted to talk about a lot of medical stuff, and I can't really get into medical stuff too much because I'm not a doctor. But I mean, I could talk about the basics, but I can't go into detail about that. But a lot of people wanted to talk about relationships after being diagnosed with a chronic illness. And I thought that was a great subject to talk about. So we're going to talk a little bit about relationships after being diagnosed with a chronic illness and the effects that chronic illness has on relationships. Also, later on in the podcast, we're just going to touch base with our special guests that we're going to have next week, Julie Braun. She has written a book called Nothing But Respect, and it's basically her life journey. She has fibromyalgia and her overcoming some of her challenges. And I'm very excited to have her next week, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Becoming chronically ill is devastating in many areas of your life. And one of the things that a lot of people find surprising is the changes that they have in all of their relationships. And sometimes I think that people that become ill expected a little bit more than what they're getting from their family and friends. We always think that when we're healthy, if we ever get sick, that those people would just gather around you and support you and be there for you. And sometimes people aren't there for us the way that we imagined when we thought in our mind if we became sick, how people would be there for us. And we start to feel a little bit of resentment towards them. Now, before I get into this, if there's someone that's just completely not there for you once you become sick, I mean, you have to make a decision if you're going to keep them in your life or not. There's always going to be an adjustment period and there's going to be hard times. But if somebody becomes literally detached from you or your relationship, then, you're going to have to make a choice whether you stay or you go. It doesn't matter what relationship. It could be with your parents. It could be with your spouse. It could be with family and friends. Somebody that just kind of puts you off to the side and doesn't deal with it at all, that's another story. But I'm talking about the people that do try, but they're not quite doing what you want them to do. Just like people deal with being diagnosed with a chronic illness, go through stages, so do people that have family or friends that become chronically ill. They learn to cope and deal with it in different stages. They didn't ask for you to become sick, just like you didn't ask to become sick. It's all new to them, it's confusing, and it's a learning process that everybody has to go through. The most important thing is that you continue to communicate with each other. You have to express yourself how you're feeling. Now, this doesn't mean that you go on complaining all day long. You want to really push the big things and not the little things. They already know you're in pain. They already know that you're sick and that you have to deal with it every day. And it's okay to talk about it a little bit because we got to get it off our chest, right? But you don't want to go on and on about it every single day because, it gets a little bit exhausting to hear that. But there are some things that do need to be addressed. And these are the things that are important to you, that are most important to you. And you have to keep that line of communication open at all times. A good example would be if you had a friend and this friend liked to go out with you every once in a while. And you had told this friend that you need to know in advance before you go out because you had to prepare. Because we all know when we have chronic illness, we have to prepare like crazy. We have to prepare our sleep schedule. We have to prepare what we're going to wear. If you have lupus, you have to make sure that you're all covered up so that you don't get sick. And if you're on a lot of medications, you got to plan that all out and put it in your purse. If you told this friend several times that you got to prepare and they keep calling you and trying to get you to go out at the last minute and saying things, well, you just need to get out of the house more. You just need to loosen up a little bit. Those are things that you don't need to deal with and you shouldn't deal with. If it happens once, you explain how you feel. You tell them why you feel that way. And if they continue to do it, that's when you need to make a decision if this relationship should go on any longer. If it's a healthy relationship for you or for that person at all. And also, if you're chronically ill, especially with conditions like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome, well, actually a lot of them, because lupus, you have fatigue as well, you might have to cancel at the last minute. And if your friend gets upset every single time you cancel, there's going to be some disappointment, but if they're just plain rude to you because you cancel, you need to sit down, you need to explain to them why. Just sit them down and explain to them that your symptoms are not predictable and they're a little bit fickle. And on some days you're going to feel good and you're going to look good and they're going to think, oh, well, they're getting better. But on other days, you're not going to feel good. It really depends on your chronic illness, if you can make that date or not. And sit them down and explain it. And if they continue to be rude to you and if they continue to belittle you or make you feel bad, you really need to reevaluate that relationship. Now, romantic relationships is much in the same way, but it's a little bit more painful when it happens to the one person that you love. And it's the same way in that you got to keep that line of communication open. But when it actually ends up that person just does not work out because you become chronically ill, it's just devastating. Having a chronic illness can take a toll on even the closest relationships. The ill partner may not feel like he or she used to. The loved one may not know how to handle the changes. And the strain may push in sickness and in health to the breaking point. There have actually been studies about people becoming chronically ill and marriages. And if the couple is young, a good percentage of marriages fail. They seem to get a little bit more stable as the ages go up, but really young people, if they're faced with a chronic illness, it's devastating. And I can understand why, because you just don't have all the tools to deal with something like a chronic illness when you're really, really young. So I could see why that happens. But just like, a friendship, you really have to keep those lines of communication open. If there's something that's really bothering you, if you don't speak up, they're not going to know what's bothering you. And then that solves nothing. So I just wanted to touch base a little bit about relationships after becoming chronically ill. Of course, I'm no expert, but, I've learned a little bit from experience and from the experience of others. We do have over 13,000 people over at FibroTV. And I, believe it or not, I listen to all your posts and I look at all your posts and I see what you're all going through. So I'm very excited about next week. We're going to have our very first guest here on FibroTV. We're going to have Julie Braun, and she wrote the book Nothing But Respect: How One Woman Learned to Overcome Her Demons, Making Peace with Her Past, and present and go from victim to victory. So I'm very excited to have Julie on the show next week. It'll be an interesting experience if I can get all the audio right with my fog. So it should be fun. At least you'll understand. So make sure that you tune in next week. I'll just post it on FibroTV.com and Facebook.com/FibroTV as well. So we're going to start a new thing. Every week when I do a podcast, I'm going to feature an independent artist. And this week we are going to feature Jason Gibson. When I asked him how I should give him credit and to send people over to his page, he says, "Hey, I don't really have a band. It's just me in the studio with another musician." So here he is, Jason Gibson. You can find him at Facebook. He is at facebook.com/USANA Vision 1. Oh, it's supposed to be like USA and an invasion, I guess? But it's USANAVISION 1. All right, here's his song, and it's called Invisible Miracles.
It was brought to light, a miracle, one we couldn't see, a mystery of life revealed and shared with you and me, a vision of health beyond what we've ever known. It gave us inspiration with the truth that we've been shown. Invisible miracles, ones we don't see. The dawning of precious life for you and me. Invisible miracles, the ones we can't see. That's what happens deep inside when we first believe. Without the light, what's visible? What could we really see? When we let it shine inside is when we truly see a miracle of love beyond what we've ever known. Gave us inspiration as the light within us shone. Invisible miracles, ones we don't see. The dawning of precious life for you and me. Invisible miracles, the ones we can't see. That's what happens deep inside when we first believe. God made those miracles for you and me, just as it was made the light for all the world to see. A vision of hope beyond what we've ever known. Gave us inspiration with the love that we've been shown. Invisible miracles, the ones we don't see. my precious life for you and me. Invisible miracles, the ones we can't see. That's what happened deep inside when we first believed. That's what happened deep inside when we first believed.
My body hurts from my head down to my toe.
Well, that concludes podcast number 17. If you want to know where you could find us, you can find us over at Facebook at facebook.com/FibroTV. You can also find us at Twitter at twitter.com/FibroTV. You can find us at YouTube at youtube.com/FibroTV. And we are on the interwebs at www.FibroTV.com. Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time.
And my stomach hurts from my colon to my spine.